I'll make some introductions in just a second. You want to hold on to that one for now? Kevin, why don't you come up too? So we're going to open it up to broad stroke questions, whatever you have. If you can keep it to the 4 systems, that's great. But if you have something that we didn't even cover today, maybe just real applicable questions, we'll try to keep the responses to just like a minute or two, if everyone can try to follow that, just so we can get as many questions out there as possible. Again, we're going to end this right at 4:30, but we will be around afterwards as well. If you don't have our contact information, everyone on staff, you can find our contact information right on our website. We would love to spend time with you, either on the phone, email. We'll set up a Zoom call with you, just one-on-one, and we can walk you through different things. We simply want to be a resource to you. We lean on a lot of churches ourselves for resources. We can, if we don't have the answer, we'll point you in a different direction if we need to. But real quick, I'll just introduce our staff to you. So we have our lead pastor, Pastor Rick. We have our executive assistant, Pam Resch. We have our brand new title, and I love it. We have our experienced pastor, Liz Bailey. She started off with us a couple years ago as a graphic designer, and she just flourished in that role and just proven leadership. So we just kind of made her our experienced pastor just last week. We have our youth pastor, Andy Peters. We have our worship leader, pastor, director, Dan Swain. We have today's actually Dan's last day, which is really bitter for us, but sweet for him because he gets to see his family, and he's moving to Nashville soon. We have Mark, who is, pastor of Epic Church, but also spent some time here on staff and is Pastor Rick's son. So if you didn't know that connection, there you go. And then one of our newest hires as well, we have Kevin Weigel. He is going to be serving as our campus pastor at our Medina campus. So I'll just stay standing, and if you have a question, again, we'll get on the microphone just so we can have it recorded. But if you have a question for a specific person, just say who you're asking it for. If it's more of a general one, we'll just kind of pass it around.
Yeah, this one's for Pastor Mark. You talked about how you rent a movie theater for your services. But you also talked about staff meetings and discussions in the hallway. So where are you meeting if you don't have a home base?
So we have offices that we lease, so that it's about 3,000 square feet, like a mile from the movie theater where our staff works out of, and we have a lot of leader trainings in and use it for whatever. There's a baptism in there this Sunday night, so we use it for whatever. But yeah, we have an office that we do all of that out of.
Several times throughout the different ministry presentations or the systems, you guys talk about connection cards. And I just wondered if somebody could talk about how hard of a process it is. I mean, are those changing week to week? How do you make sure that they're tied in with your tracks and I don't know, just the design of that and who does it and how often does it change?
So I designed our current connection card. I think we've gone through about 3 revisions over the past year and a half, 2 years. That was something that we'd been implementing for a long time, but we did realize small changes to the design do affect how users are interacting with it. For instance, at the top of the connection card, we used to have name, email, address, all of your information. Well, that's a lot to ask of somebody who's coming in for the first time. Given that our vision is unchurched, we wanted to think, okay, if they see this, what is the first thing they're going to want? And so we simplified it. Instead of saying name, colon, and all, it just says, hi, what's your name? And then it brings you kind of through, and I think we can improve. There's still room for improvement there, but I think we only have about a 33% fill-out rate, too, on a Sunday, so it's not even as high as we'd like. And this is something we've talked about in staff meetings, too. What can we do? Do we change it more often in order to prompt people to look at it again? And that's what's actually happening in our shell too, our announcement shell. So when you walk in, you have a connection card inside of this little booklet. But even changing that, Pastor talked about expectations. And great that you set expectations, but also you should, I think, exceed expectations when people come in every single week. What about those people that come every week and they're not looking at it anymore? You know, making changes, not just for the sake of change, but for the sake of getting it better. Does that answer your question? Oh, is there? We have not. No, not every week. We've been running at least 3 months at a time, at least, and probably more now with the current one, maybe 6 months. But no, there is. I make a template, and so that's easy for everybody in the office to just print. But I've also made a connection card for Epic. I've made different connection cards for different ministries and whatnot. Yes, we can absolutely make it available. I do have a generic one too. Yep.
One thing that does help with that is, like, we communicate it as it's our main tool to communicate. So if there's anything like to sign up for, anything that someone wants more info on, that's what they use. So it's not, go to that table and sign up there, go to that. It's all kind of there. And we tell, like, Liz mentioned as well, like even with first-time guests, we say it each week and we'll give you our no-hassle guarantee. We're not going to show up at your door or misuse your info in any way. There's just a little handwritten note with a gift card that we'll send you in the mail, and that hopefully kind of sets them at ease.
Yeah, I'm just curious, saying that you change it like once a month or in that sort of region.
It's really based on need.
Correct, and I'm just curious about what are the reasons for those changes, one. And secondly, sometimes I wonder about how much we're putting on those cards. Can you speak to that a little bit in terms of why you're changing and how do you adjust for that?
Yeah, we really do look at the numbers. I'm a very big numbers person, so I'm looking immediately, oh man, we got a 10% drop in a connection card. Why? A lot of that is to do with how we say it. And again, when I'm presenting on stage, I say it is your tool to connect with us, to grow spiritually. We want to know, as staff or as fellow community members, how can we help you grow in your faith? And so I will say to the people I know, hey, I've seen you here, and I don't think you filled out a connection card, right on stage, and it's playful, but I think to promote it as that tool. But the reason we're usually making changes is maybe they're not filling out a box. I mean, Pam had mentioned before, they're never filling out this box, and I think it's an awareness. We are very conscious of what's going on. We use it, and then it's that right, wrong, missing, confusing. It really is. When we go back and we check every single week, we're back checking. There's not a week we're missing. And so I think that keeps us on our toes, and every week we're able to catch things that are happening and make changes. But we don't make changes every week. It's just a matter of it's built into our system as a culture on staff.
This is connected a little bit to that, but also to the website stuff that you guys mentioned. For a church that runs its communication primarily on volunteers, I mean, we have an office manager that's able to she currently manages our website. I, as the associate pastor, do all of our graphic design and artwork. But we struggle to keep our website up to date and keep content flowing into it. Do you guys have any recommendations for when we're talking systems and being able to have it be repeatable and everything, for generating content and managing things like graphics and websites, which are skilled jobs? Anybody can speak to that one.
I'm sorry, it's me again. I always say less is more. I know a lot of people think that the website is supposed to be like a running update, almost like a Facebook, but that's what Facebook is for. So I would say with your website, use your website as a resource. Build things onto it that won't change. Put things on there. Don't put a lot of pictures maybe of people, because people change so often. I mean, okay, I get bangs, and maybe I'm wearing something different next month, and all of a sudden I look different. So I would say try to be as classic as possible, and less is more. It really is more, as long as you are setting the expectation, letting people know this is what you can expect from our service. Times are really clear. Reach out is really clear. But just I don't think you have to be updating your website as much as people think you do. Use the tools like social media to pump out announcements and to pump out changes, because Facebook was designed for your user interface. It's much easier, right? And a website, I'm just telling you now, people don't expect websites to be the sole way to receive information. It's not a news source, it's a resource. So rely on it to convey things that don't change. Even us, I think we make too many changes on our website regularly, and people aren't checking into those things. They're on social, they're flipping through things they subscribe to, they're on Twitter, they're looking at their email. There are things that move faster than websites. Does that make sense? Does that answer?
And just to add on to that too, like our website, if you look at it now, is it's a lot bigger and more updated. But if you look back 2 to 3 years ago, I mean, there was a time Mark was managing that. I was managing that for a little bit, and neither of us are graphic designers or web people. We just there was a website called Clover, which is made for church websites, and it's really anyone can do it. It was very simplified. It's a little bit more complicated now, but still, like, we almost treat it like a program for the church. You're not going to find out everything about the church in our program. It's designed for, we assume someone who's never been here before is going to go to the website, is going to read the information, but we haven't built a culture where if you need information about this Friday's event, go to the website. It's more that front door of our church, if that makes sense. So it started super simple, got a little bit more complicated, but we try to keep it as simple as possible.
If you don't mind, if I can add to that, actually, the marketing background. But if you never change your site, people will not go to it. If you don't use a tool, people will ignore the tool. Just like with the connection cards and everything, if you don't use the tool, people will ignore it. And so if you don't update your website, at least periodically, or Facebook or any sort of tool, then it will get ignored.
I'd say probably the most important is the messages Sunday. If I'm looking for a church and I see the last message was 6 months ago, like that speaks volumes to me, just as someone who's younger. Who are you pointing to? I thought you were pointing to Mark for a second.
Thank you for everything that you're sharing with us today. It's been wonderful, so thank you very much. As we talk about systems and keeping them going in the same direction and functioning sort of as a well-oiled machine, staff's important, but the ministry leaders and the coaches are so much more important as well, especially since they are serving and volunteering their times. So I'm just curious, how do you provide feedback and accountability for your ministry leaders to make sure those systems are all going in the same direction? Do you do annual performance review sort of thing? Do you do retreats throughout the year? So just kind of curious how you keep the synergy and the direction going in the same direction.
I think Mark alluded to it in the ministry system, set the expectations. And depending on what the person is, whether they're coach or assistant coach or team player or whatever, they set the expectations. And then I think, your question is good because you have to have some type of measurement tool, right? I mean, how we doing and executing this particular thing. And I don't know. I think different ones of us oversee, different team leads, and so I think that's another way, if you have the connection to that team lead, then they can communicate stuff to team. Let's take guest services. Now, for a while, Brian was overseeing that, but he had team leads like we do right now for guest services, and then you just communicate with that team lead, and they can communicate it down to the team. I don't know if anybody wants to add to that.
Yeah, I would say relationship is key, man. Like, it's really important that, for me, it's been important the last 8 years to make these people that serve with me my friends, and so like every Thursday night after rehearsal, including tonight, for the one more time, we will end rehearsal and we will go to Tully's, which is a restaurant down the road, and we will hang out together and we will spend time together and we will talk about church stuff, we will talk about life, but it's that whole relationship piece. And in the midst of that, sometimes we have conversations about ministry and where things are going and what we need to do and what changes need to be made. But it's all through the context of, for me and my team, it's all through the context of relationships, and just it's like the difference between having a conversation with a coworker, having a conversation with your best friend. You can share and be a little more open and be a little more pointed with your best friend than you can with a coworker. Sometimes you got to measure your words a little bit, and so if the expectations aren't necessarily being met by, I can do that over some chicken wings with my worship leader at Medina campus or Akron campus or production guy, then I can necessarily, hey, we got to meet at 10 o'clock and we got to have a conversation about yada yada yada.
So you can only lead so many people. So for us now, the way I view it is I lead our staff as they lead the coaches, and so I hold, just in our conversations, not like in that type way, but I hold them accountable to, hey, are you pouring into your coaches? And so I kind of lead through our staff as they lead through them. But early on, and this is what I encourage you, if you're in kind of a season where you're the only person on staff, think about, hey, okay, who are the 5 or 6 key leaders that I can just kind of intentionally pour into. And maybe that's a consistent once a month, with them all together. Maybe you figure it out to where you do it individually. But you can't. You're not going to be able to be that up and close with every single team member. To have 30, 40, however many people that you feel like you're personally responsible to lead in that way. So to maybe think about a group of people that you can just kind of. Hopefully they're the people who could lead other teams eventually or lead somewhere, but kind of lead them lead in that just lead them through that way, and then as the season comes where if there's other staff or whatever, you can change that structure or whatever. But
So again, we're not going anywhere. If you have any questions for us, feel free. We can talk one-on-one. Our Zoom call, which will take place in a month, we'll send out a reminder. But we're going to focus a lot on Q&A. We've kind of figured, we saw afterwards that was maybe the most beneficial thing, where we just kind of opened it up. And I know our Zoom call probably went 20 minutes over, and a few people had to drop off. But the questions started flowing. And so again, you can stay today, talk to us one-on-one. You can ask the question Zoom. You could email us, contact us, but we're available to you. You want to say one more thing?
Yeah. So the ideal, one of the systems we focused on was the volunteer system, but that Connect wall back there, you can feel free to take some stuff off there. Is one of our ways that we could connect somebody that wanted to volunteer to actually what the responsibilities were like, who to contact, and also how long that thing took, as well as growth groups. But really, that came out of a team meeting, and Pam saw it someplace, and she brought it to our staff. So anyway, that's all I had to say.
Well, I'm just going to pray, bless our ride home, and then, again, hang out with us for a while. We'll talk. But, dear God, I just thank you so much for the ability to learn amongst peers. God, that you've just surrounded us with people that we can learn from, and that we can just go through this journey together, that we don't have to do this alone. God, even if if we feel isolated in seasons, God, that we have people in our denomination that we can lean on, that we can learn from, and that we can just be a part of this journey together. So, God, I just ask that you would bless our time as we begin to implement a couple principles that we've learned today or over the course of this Elevate, God, that you would just bring fruit to the things that we do. God, knowing that we want to serve you and we want to grow your kingdom here on earth. So bless our ride home, God. Bless our conversations today. And we're just trusting that you provide great things for us and for our churches. And in your name we pray. Amen. If you could do me one more favor and just give a round of applause for our staff, but also our volunteers.